There was once a man who had everything money could buy: cars, a big house, fine clothes, and even a successful business. Yet every morning he woke up with a heavy heart. His eyes would open, and before his feet touched the ground, his mind was already filled with stress. What if sales dropped today? What if someone betrayed him? What if everything failed? He met an old friend one evening, someone who lived a modest life, worked as a school teacher, and had never owned a car. But his smile was warm, his laughter real, and his presence calming. The successful man asked, "How can you be this happy with so little?" The friend replied, "Because I control what I think. I don't let my mind become a dustbin for worry, fear, or anger. I feed it with peace, purpose, and simple joys." The man didn't quite understand, so the teacher gave him a challenge. "Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, pause. Instead of thinking about what could go wrong, think about what you're thankful for. Think of something good in your life, even if it's small. Then remind yourself, I have the power to choose what thoughts stay in my mind today." The next morning, the businessman tried it. At first, it felt forced, but slowly he found himself smiling at the thought of his daughter's laughter the night before. He remembered the taste of his favorite tea. That day, something changed. He was still busy. There were still problems, but his mind felt lighter. He practiced this every day, and over time, the fears that once ruled him began to shrink. The happiness he was chasing in the outside world quietly grew inside him. He learned something many people never do, that happiness doesn't depend on events, money, or status. It begins and ends in the mind. Control your thoughts, and you begin to control your happiness. That's how he found peace, not by changing his life, but by changing the way he thought about it. It was a cold morning when Sarah sat alone at the cafe window, her coffee growing cold in front of her. Her hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through emails, each message adding more weight to her chest. She was worried about her job, her bills, her future. The more she thought, the more tired she felt, as if worry itself was pulling the strength out of her body. An old man at the next table noticed her. He smiled gently and said, "You remind me of myself years ago." She looked up, a bit surprised, and gave a tired nod. The man continued, "I used to worry about everything. I thought if I didn't, things would fall apart. But all that worrying didn't fix anything. It only wore me down." Sarah asked, "But what if the worst happens?" The old man stirred his tea slowly. "Then face it when it comes, not before. I once spent 3 nights without sleep because I thought I'd lose my shop. I didn't lose it, but I did lose peace, energy, and days I'll never get back. Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it takes you nowhere." She stared at him, thinking. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, but there was something calm about him, something solid. That evening, Sarah sat in bed with the lights off. The worries were still there, knocking at the door of her mind. But this time, she didn't open it all the way. She whispered to herself, "Worry won't fix it. Let me rest. Let me try again tomorrow, with energy." And slowly, day by day, she trained her mind to do just that. Worry would come, but it didn't stay long. She had learned the secret that life needs energy, and worry steals it. So she chose to protect it. James stood by the train window, watching the world rush by. His mind wasn't in the present. It was stuck in a mess of yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's fears. He had made mistakes at work last week, and now he kept thinking, what if I lose my job? What if I can't fix it? What if everything falls apart? His chest felt tight, his breath shallow. Life felt heavy. An elderly woman sitting beside him noticed his restless energy. She smiled kindly and said, "You seem far away." James gave a small laugh. "I guess I'm just thinking about too much." She nodded. "I used to do that, until a doctor told me something that changed my life." He said, "Live in day-tight compartments, like a ship. Each day is a watertight room. You close the door to yesterday. You don't open the door to tomorrow. You stay right where you are, today." James frowned. "That sounds simple, but life doesn't work that way." She leaned in slightly. "No, life can work that way. We just don't let it. I used to wake up already afraid of next week, but I started training myself. Each morning I'd say, just today, not the past, not the future, just today. I'd focus on what I can do now, not what I can't control." He looked out the window again. The sky was soft with evening light. For a moment, he let his shoulders relax. That night, James sat on his bed and whispered the words to himself. Just today. He didn't try to solve everything. He didn't fight the past or fear the future. He just folded his clothes. He wrote one email. He smiled at a small victory, and for the first time in a long while, he slept without a storm in his chest. The next day, he said it again. Just today. And slowly, one small present day at a time, life became lighter. It was a rainy afternoon when Maria sat at the kitchen table, staring at the unpaid bills. Her phone buzzed with messages she didn't want to read, and her heart felt like it was sinking. Nothing seemed to be going right. The rent was late, her job felt shaky, and her dreams felt further away than ever. Her little boy, Daniel, came running in with wet shoes and a wide smile. "Mama, look, I found a red leaf. It's my favorite color." He held it out like a treasure. Maria smiled faintly, but her mind stayed buried in problems. "That's nice, sweetheart," she said quietly. Daniel looked at her with curious eyes. "Mama, are you sad again?" She didn't know what to say, but then something inside her whispered, "Look around, not down." She lifted her eyes. The rain tapped gently on the windows. Her son was healthy. There was food in the fridge. The light above her still worked, and that red leaf, held in his tiny hands, was bright and beautiful. Something so small, yet so full of life. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, Maria picked up a notebook and wrote one thing she was grateful for. Just one. The next night, she wrote two. After a week, she had a page full. Her problems didn't vanish. The bills were still there, the job still uncertain. But her heart began to shift. Instead of waking up to worry, she woke up looking for one more blessing to write down. She still had troubles, but they no longer filled the whole room. She had learned to see the light that was always there, small and steady, waiting to be noticed. And in that quiet change, she found strength. Eli worked at a small printing shop in the middle of the city. Every day felt the same. Ink on paper, orders to fill, machines to fix. He often wondered if what he did even mattered. People came and went, picked up their flyers, business cards, wedding invitations, and left. No one really noticed him. One evening, he stayed late to finish a last-minute order. A woman had walked in, asking if he could print funeral programs for her father's service. Her eyes were tired, her voice low. Eli nodded and worked quietly, carefully laying out the design she brought. As she picked them up, her hands trembled. She looked at him and said, "Thank you. These mean so much to my family. You've made something we'll hold forever." Eli froze. He hadn't thought of it that way. The next morning, he looked around his shop differently. The posters he printed weren't just ink. They were dreams starting. The menus helped someone open a restaurant. The birthday banners made memories. The invitations brought people together. The little things he made traveled into people's lives and became part of their stories. He realized it wasn't about the paper or the printer. It was about what the work meant to someone else. And that gave his job a quiet kind of honor. From that day on, Eli still did the same tasks, but with new eyes. And every time he handed over a finished job, he reminded himself, I'm not just printing paper, I'm printing moments. Tariq worked as a janitor in a large hospital. Every day, he swept the floors, emptied trash bins, cleaned restrooms, and mopped long hallways. People passed him by without much notice. Doctors, nurses, visitors. He often heard people say things like, he just cleans, and for a long time, he believed it, just cleans. One night, he stayed late to finish mopping the children's ward. As he was about to leave, a nurse walked by and smiled. Thank you, Tariq. Because of you, our kids don't get infections. Because of you, this place stays safe. He paused. No one had said that before. It stayed with him. A few days later, a small boy in the ward waved at him. Hi, mister. My mom says you're the reason the floor's not sticky. They both laughed. Something began to shift inside Tariq. He noticed the way nurses moved quickly through the halls because there were no messes. He saw how visitors sat comfortably on clean benches. He watched doctors rushing through spotless rooms, doing life-saving work without slipping or pausing. He was part of it all. Maybe not wearing a white coat, but still helping, still contributing. He started standing taller. He polished the floors with extra care. He even helped a lost visitor find the right room. And every time he clocked out, he told himself, I did something good today. I helped this place run. Tariq no longer said, I just clean. He said, I make this hospital safer. And in that, he found quiet pride, a pride no title could take away. Lena worked at a small bakery in her neighborhood. Every morning, she'd walk in with a sigh. The ovens were old, the orders never stopped, and the owner never said thank you. She'd grumble while kneading the dough, roll her eyes during rush hours, and complain to her co-workers during every break. One day, while she was ranting about how unfair everything was, her younger colleague Amir quietly said, Why don't you change something instead of just talking about it? His words stung. Lena stayed silent the rest of the shift. That night, she lay awake, thinking. Maybe she couldn't fix everything, but could she fix something? The next morning, instead of complaining about the mess in the back room, she cleaned it. Instead of waiting for someone else to organize the order list, she did it herself. She stopped talking about what was wrong and started doing what she could. Something changed. Customers began noticing the cleaner counters. Orders flowed smoother. The bakery felt lighter. Even the owner began to smile more. Lena felt different too. She still had hard days, but her energy wasn't wasted on complaining anymore. She used it to improve things. She used it to grow. And slowly, the bakery became not just a place she worked, but a place she shaped. Lena learned a simple truth. Complaining keeps you stuck, but action moves you forward. Omar worked in a call center, answering the same kinds of questions every day. People complained, shouted, or hung up. The routine drained him. Every morning, he dragged himself to his desk, counting the hours until he could leave. The days blurred together, and his smile faded without him noticing. One day, a new trainer joined and gave them a small challenge. Try to see how many people you can genuinely make smile today, even just one extra person. Make it a game. Omar didn't take it seriously at first, but he tried. On his next call, he made a small joke. The customer chuckled. That felt different. The next day, he tried again. Then, he started timing how fast he could solve problems. He kept track of how many calls ended with, "Thank you." He even gave himself points. 10 for a compliment, 5 for a fast solution, and 15 if someone called back asking for him. Soon, his shifts didn't feel as long. The work didn't change, but his way of seeing it did. He turned each challenge into a personal mission. What used to feel boring now felt like a puzzle he wanted to solve. Others noticed. His energy changed. His results improved, and so did his mood. Omar realized something powerful. When he treated his work like a dull chore, it drained him. But when he turned it into a game he could win, it became exciting. He didn't change his job, he just changed how he played it. Nadia worked at a clothing store in the mall. She folded shirts, cleaned shelves, and helped customers find sizes. After a few months, everything started to feel the same. Same music, same questions, same tired smile. She found herself checking the clock every 10 minutes, wishing the day would hurry up and end. One afternoon, she watched a customer struggle to choose a dress. Instead of just standing by, Nadia walked over and asked, "Can I help you find something for a special occasion?" The woman nodded. "It's my first job interview in years." Suddenly, Nadia became curious. What kind of job? What style would give confidence? She picked a few outfits, asked questions, gave honest opinions. The customer left smiling, and Nadia felt something she hadn't in weeks. Interest. From that day on, she started asking questions about everything. Where were the clothes made? What colors were trending? Why did certain customers choose certain styles? She even started learning the basics of visual merchandising on her breaks. One day, she tried rearranging a display. Sales from that table went up. Her manager noticed. Nadia realized that boredom wasn't because the job was too simple. It was because she'd stopped being curious. When she took initiative, asked questions, and tried new things, even the small tasks became interesting. She didn't wait for the job to excite her. She brought the excitement herself. Arman had been working at the same office for 3 years when it happened. A co-worker he trusted blamed him for a mistake he didn't make. It was a small error, but the manager believed the other person, and Arman got a warning on his record. He felt humiliated, angry, and betrayed. For weeks, he carried that anger with him. He replayed the moment in his mind, thought of what he should have said, planned how he'd expose the truth. The more he thought about it, the more it ate away at his energy. Even when the day was going well, the memory returned and darkened his mood. One evening, he stayed late to finish a report. The office was quiet. An older co-worker walked by and saw him sitting alone. "You look heavy," the man said. Arman sighed. "I can't stop thinking about what happened. It wasn't fair. I want him to feel what I felt." The man nodded. "I used to think like that too. But carrying revenge is like holding a burning coal. You're the one who gets burned." Arman looked at him confused. "You can either carry that anger or drop it and move forward. Letting go doesn't mean it was okay. It means you're choosing peace over poison." That night, Arman didn't make any big speech. He didn't try to get even. He simply chose not to talk about it again. He focused on his own work, helped others, and built back his reputation, slowly and steadily. Months later, he saw that same co-worker struggling with a project. Arman helped anyway, not because he forgot what happened, but because he had already moved on. He learned that holding on to anger only slowed him down. Forgiving didn't make him weak. It made him free. Rashid had just started working at a busy supermarket. He was quiet, did his tasks well, but mostly kept to himself. He thought it was better not to talk much. Just work, finish, and go home. The customers barely noticed him, and the other workers didn't try to get close. Every day felt the same, cold and distant. One morning, while arranging shelves, an old man approached and asked where the tea section was. Rashid pointed silently, not making eye contact. The man looked at him and said gently, "You know, a smile would go well with that kind help." That moment stayed with Rashid. The next day, he decided to try it, just once. He smiled at a woman struggling with a heavy basket. She smiled back and said, "Thank you, young man." That made my day. It felt good. So he tried again. A small smile when greeting co-workers. A kind grin when handing change to a customer. Slowly, something changed. People began talking to him. Customers started calling him by name. Co-workers asked him to join them for lunch. The same store, the same tasks, but everything felt warmer. Rashid realized it wasn't a big speech or a special skill that connected people. It was a simple, honest smile. It cost nothing, yet opened doors everywhere. And every day after that, he carried it with him like a key, one that unlocked kindness in others and brought peace to himself. Every morning, Samir made a long to-do list. And every morning, he skipped the one task he hated most, calling a difficult client who always complained. He'd do easier things first, like checking emails or organizing files. But as the hours passed, the dreaded call still sat there, waiting. By the end of the day, he was tired and anxious. The task still wasn't done, and it followed him home, sitting in the back of his mind like a shadow. One afternoon, his supervisor noticed and asked, "Why do you leave the hard part for last?" Samir shrugged. "Because it's stressful. I keep waiting for the right moment." The supervisor smiled. "Let me tell you a trick. Do the hardest thing first. Rip off the bandage early. The rest of the day gets lighter." The next morning, Samir sat at his desk and made the call first thing. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't as terrible as he imagined. He finished it in 10 minutes, and something surprising happened. He felt free. The rest of the day moved faster. His mind was clearer. His energy stayed high. For the first time in weeks, he left the office feeling proud. From that day on, Samir tackled the hardest task first, every morning. And each time, it gave him a sense of control and confidence that lasted all day. He realized that avoiding a hard task only made it heavier, but facing it early made everything else feel lighter. Sana worked as a receptionist in a small office. Her job was simple: answer calls, greet visitors, and manage appointments. Every day felt the same. She thought her work didn't need learning. It was just routine, nothing more. One afternoon, while waiting for the next call, she overheard two colleagues discussing a new project. They used words she didn't understand, terms from marketing and design. She felt left out, like the conversation wasn't meant for her. That night, she searched those words online, just out of curiosity. One article led to another. She started watching short videos during her breaks, learning small things: what branding means, how digital ads work, how a website is built. Slowly, something shifted. She began understanding the team's discussions. She asked thoughtful questions. One of the designers noticed and invited her to sit in on a planning meeting. Soon after, the manager asked her to help organize client data for a campaign. It wasn't part of her job, but she did it gladly. Sana had turned her curiosity into a habit. Every day, she tried to learn something new: a new word, a new tool. a new idea. Her job didn't change, but she did. She was no longer just the receptionist. She was growing, evolving, and others saw it. She realized that learning wasn't just for students or degrees. It was fuel for life. And when you carry that passion, even the smallest job becomes a doorway to something greater. Bilal had just started his new job as a sales assistant. It wasn't his dream job, and to be honest, he didn't feel excited about it. Every morning, he dragged himself to work, did what he had to do, and waited for the day to end. His voice sounded flat, his face looked tired, and customers barely responded to him. One day, his team leader pulled him aside and said, "I know this isn't your favorite thing, but let me tell you something that changed my life. If you act enthusiastic, you'll start to feel it." Bilal didn't believe it, but the next day, he decided to try, just for fun. He stood a little straighter, put more energy in his voice, smiled when he spoke, greeted each customer like they actually mattered. At first, it felt strange, forced, but as the hours passed, something unexpected happened. People started smiling back. A customer joked with him. Another thanked him for being so helpful. He laughed genuinely. His mood lifted. By the end of the day, he was surprised by how good he felt. He tried it again the next day, and again the day after that. Soon, the fake energy turned into real energy. He wasn't just acting enthusiastic anymore. He was enthusiastic. Bilal realized that emotions often follow action. You don't have to wait to feel motivated. Sometimes you lead the way with your body, your voice, your attitude, and the feeling follows. And in that small shift, his whole experience changed. Not because the job became better, but because he did. Mehak was in charge of sending out an important email to all the company's clients. She double-checked the message, hit send, and leaned back in her chair with relief. But just 10 minutes later, her heart sank. She had sent the wrong file, a draft, full of mistakes instead of the final version. Panic took over. Her hands shook. She imagined the manager yelling, clients complaining, her reputation ruined. She thought about denying it, blaming the system, or saying nothing at all. But then she took a deep breath and did something simple. She stood up, walked to her manager's office, and said, "I made a mistake. I sent the wrong file. I've already prepared a correction and will send it right away, along with an apology." Her manager looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for telling me. Fix it and learn from it." Mehak sent the corrected message, apologized honestly to the clients, and moved on with her day. To her surprise, no one shouted. No one humiliated her. In fact, a few clients even replied kindly, saying, "Happens to all of us." That evening, she realized something important. The fear of a mistake is often worse than the mistake itself. But when you accept it calmly, fix it, and move forward, you earn something greater than perfection. You earn trust. From then on, Mehak didn't fear mistakes as much. She knew that accepting them with grace made her stronger, not weaker. Rizwan always thought real life would begin later, after the promotion, after buying a house, after things got easier. So he moved through each day half awake, rushing through mornings, scrolling through evenings, and telling himself, one day, things will be better. One afternoon, he visited his uncle in the hospital. His uncle had been a teacher for 40 years and was now too weak to speak much, but he smiled when Rizwan walked in. Beside the bed was a small notebook filled with scribbled thoughts. Rizwan flipped through it. One line stopped him. "I used to wait for big days. Then I realized every day is a big day when you treat it like one." That line stayed with him. The next morning, Rizwan did something different. He woke up a little earlier, sat with his tea instead of rushing. At work, he looked his co-workers in the eye, asked about their families, helped a colleague without being asked. In the evening, he walked home instead of taking the bus, noticing the sky, the children playing, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery. It was a normal day, nothing special. But for the first time in a long while, it felt full. He began living that way, not waiting for weekends or perfect plans or some future moment. He made the ordinary moments count, because Rizwan had learned a quiet truth. Life isn't something that starts later. It's happening now, and every day is a chance to live it fully. Hassan had a clear plan for his life. Finish university, get a high-paying job, buy a big house, travel the world. He set goals, worked hard, and reached them one by one. People admired his success, and from the outside, it looked perfect. But inside, something felt missing. After buying his dream car, he sat behind the wheel and thought, is this it? The joy didn't last. Each new goal brought excitement, but it faded quickly. He began to wonder what he was really chasing. One evening, he visited his old teacher, a man who never had much, but always seemed content. They talked for hours. Hassan finally asked, "How did you stay so peaceful all these years?" The teacher smiled. "Because I didn't just live for goals, I lived by my values. Kindness, honesty, helping others. I never became rich, but I never felt poor." Hassan went home quietly that night. He thought about his life, what he had done, and what he had ignored. He had chased titles, but forgot connection. He had reached heights, but rarely looked around. Slowly, he began to shift. He volunteered at a local school, took time to listen, to give, to be present. He still had goals, but they were no longer everything. Now he asked himself, is this choice true to my values? And with that, something changed. Life didn't just move forward, it felt deeper, richer. Hassan learned that goals give direction, but values give meaning. And when you build your life around both, you don't just achieve more, you become more.